because I can't do anything else. A lot more exposure to the kids, but then no exposure to Janelle's kids.
The courtroom was quiet, unnaturally quiet. Even the sound of the ceiling fans couldn't penetrate the tension that hung in the air. Reporters shifted uncomfortably in their seats, cameras snapped, and a dozen eyes on a single man, Kody Brown. From the face of America's most recognizable polygamous family to sitting beneath the glare of justice, his public reputation disintegrating. This was no longer about marriage. It was about $5.4 million of the family trust gone. The case was Brown versus Brown Holdings, LLC, and Christine and Janelle Brown stood together in court for the first time not as sister wives, but as plaintiffs. They came to reveal the deception that had torn apart what remained of their family. On the other side of the aisle sat Robyn, her face neutral but hands shaking slightly. Kody refused to meet her gaze, looking straight ahead. The man who used to talk about unity, faith, and family was now charged with fraud, deception, and greed. "All rise," the bailiff bellowed. The judge appeared, the gavel came down, and the courtroom fell into absolute silence. "Court is now in session for Brown versus Brown Holdings, LLC," declared the judge. "Counsel, you may proceed." Christine's attorney rose, her voice strong but measured. "Your Honor, new evidence has been presented demonstrating that more than $5.4 million was swept out of the Brown family trust into a private LLC listed in the name of Robyn Brown. These transfers were done without the other family members' knowledge or permission." A murmur spread through the courtroom. Cameras clicked. Kody shifted restlessly. Robyn dropped her eyes, biting her lip. The lawyer went on, "This LLC, K&R Holdings, was employed to transfer family money, property sale proceeds, and media royalties into an account that was solely for Kody and Robyn's benefit. The trail of money has been documented through official records and bank statements." The judge's eyebrows rose. "Financial fraud?" "A allegation, Your Honor." "A demonstration." On the big screen, the prosecution presented receipts of transactions and bank transfer screenshots. Each photo struck the courtroom like a ton of bricks. Every signature, every date corresponded to Kody's handwriting. Christine sat quietly, her hands clasped together. This was what she had feared but also what she needed. Years of emotional silence were finally being cracked. She glared at Kody and murmured softly but firmly. "You told us we did everything for the family. You told us we shared everything. But when it came to the money, we weren't a family anymore, were we?" Kody didn't reply. He swallowed hard, his jaw clenched. Then came the turning point. Janelle's attorney rose and went to the bench. "Your Honor, my client found out about the secret LLC a year ago after she saw discrepancies in Coyote Pass financial statements. She questioned Mr. Brown, who explained to her that it was tax restructuring. In further investigation, it was apparent that funds had been diverted through a private company which none of the wives had any knowledge of." Everyone stared at Janelle. Cool, composed, and enraged, she rose. "I believed him," she stated. "We all did. But this wasn't a marriage, it was a company we didn't even realize we were employed by." The sentences sliced through the courtroom like a blade of glass. Even the judge appeared momentarily frozen. Outside the courtroom, fans and journalists had assembled with signs that bore the words, "Justice for Christine and where's the money, Kody?" The news traveled quickly. In short order, hashtags #SisterWivesCourtScandal and #BrownFamilyBetrayal were trending on the internet. Inside, the gavel came down once more. "Enter the evidence that was submitted into the record," the judge declared. "Call your first witness." And with that, the tale that TLC never shared was finally being revealed, live, before the entire world. The air in the courtroom grew tense when the first witness testified, a mild-mannered accountant named David Larson. He pushed his glasses up his nose and nervously looked in Kody's and Robyn's direction before speaking. "I was brought aboard in 2020 to assist with tax preparation and asset reporting for the Brown Family Trust," he said, his voice measured. "At that point, all income from TLC contract work, endorsements, and land development was to be routed through a shared trust account." He stopped, looking at a piece of paper on the table before him. "But beginning in late 2021, I began to see transfers to an unknown business entity, K&R Holdings, LLC. When I questioned Mr. Brown on it, he told me that it was a short-term holding company for real estate investments. But the books didn't balance. The prosecutor nodded. Can you explain what didn't balance? Yes, Larson replied, voice firm. The deposits mirrored the sales of family-owned land lots in Coyote Pass, but the disbursements were paid straight into a private account in Robyn Brown's name. From there, large sums were spent on personal expenses, including property improvements, high-end purchases, and vacations. They were not business expenses. A low hum moved through the courtroom. Reporters leaned forward. Robyn's hand flew to her mouth, eyes wide. Christine and Janelle shared a look, one of vindication and sorrow. Kody shook his head. That isn't true, he grumbled under his breath, but the microphone caught it. The judge's eyes snapped up. Mr. Brown, you will hold your tongue until you're called upon to say something, she cautioned. He nodded, his eyes back down. The prosecution proceeded, presenting printed documents. Your Honor, we have records of multiple transactions, a loan withdrawal of $850,000 spent to buy property in Robyn's name, and another $320,000 for debt consolidation on personal accounts. All in the same 6-month span. The judge examined the documents. And these monies came originally from family resources? Yes, Your Honor. Particularly from the Brown Family Land Trust and TLC royalty deposits. Outside the courthouse, news crews were already reporting the revelation. The words secret $5.4 million betrayal flashed on screens across the nation. Fans of the show, who had watched the Browns for over a decade, were now watching their downfall unfold in real life. Within, the attorney also faced towards the bench. At this point, Your Honor, the plaintiffs moved to play an audio recording of a telephone conversation between Mr. Brown and Mrs. Brown on March 2022. The judge granted permission. There was a soft crackle over the speakers. Then Kody's voice reverberated around the room. I said it before, Christine, finances are complicated. You don't get business. All I'm doing is for the long-term good of the family. Christine's voice replied, softer but biting. So why is Robyn's the only name on the company? The recording stopped. The courtroom stood still. The prosecutor addressed the judge. Your Honor, that comment was recorded during a financial mediation session between Mr. and Mrs. Brown last year. It is a direct admission of knowledge of the LLC and its owners. The judge nodded slowly. Duly noted. Robyn's voice was a soft sob as she started to cry, tears on her face. Kody leaned back, exhaling heavily, as if the burden of all the secrets weighed upon him. Janelle gazed ahead, her words shaking but firm. We created it all together. Every show, every house, every bit of revenue, all of it was to be shared. But you took it and made it your kingdom. And we were the ones paying for it. The words lingered in the air like fog. The crowd standing behind them muttered in shock. The judge's gavel came down again. Order in the court. For a moment, the court remained silent once more, save for the soft whir of the cameras capturing each sob, each breath, each unspoken reality. This was not a reality television show anymore. This was life. And for the first time, it seemed that truth was finally prevailing. The lights in the courtroom seemed more intense now, as if the truth itself had become a spotlight. Kody Brown's cool was evaporating. His skin was white, his eyes flicking between the judge, the attorneys, and the rows of quiet onlookers who used to call themselves fans. The next to approach was the plaintiff's forensic financial investigator. She presented herself as Ellen Price and introduced herself as an expert in forensic accounting and asset tracing. Unfazed, systematic, and self-assured, she flipped open a binder the thickness of a textbook. Your Honor, she started, I was tasked with investigating all financial transactions associated with K&R Holdings, LLC and the Brown Family Land Trust. What I discovered points to an intentional pattern of concealment. The judge leaned forward. Define concealment for me. Funds were redirected systematically, Price explained. From 2020 to 2023, $5.4 million in deposits passed through this LLC in Robyn Brown's name. Most came from assets that were community holdings within the family. The company took them as investments, but there are no records of returns. The prosecutor nodded. Can you give an example? Yes, Price replied, turning to a page in her report. Exhibit 9B. And this illustrates a $1.1 million transfer out of a joint trust account a week before the Coyote Pass sale was closed. The funds were labeled as pre-sale expenses. But there are no invoices or records of such expenses. That money never went back into the family fund. There were gasps around the courtroom. Even the judge looked taken aback. Kody rummaged a hand through his hair, muttering something to himself under his breath. Robyn's shoulders started shuddering. She was crying once more, and this time more violently. Price went on, her voice unwavering. These transfers were disguised as business transactions, but were done in a way that would drain joint accounts without subjecting them to tax audits. It's a method of soft laundering, legal on paper, but morally evasive. Christine's attorney got up. And who approved those transactions? Kody Brown, Price said. In multiple signatures. The defense attorney quickly objected. Your Honor, we dispute the context of these conclusions. Mr. Brown's signature in and of itself doesn't suggest impropriety. These were sophisticated family business transactions. The judge frowned. Objection noted. Proceed. Ellen Price laid her folder aside and turned to the screen where a new image appeared, an email chain. These are internal emails, she said, among Mr. Brown, Mrs. Robyn Brown, and one other business associate whose name isn't given. In one of the emails, Mr. Brown expressed himself, and I'm quoting here, make sure the other wives don't see this until the trust restructuring is finished. The courtroom erupted. Cameras snapped. The reporters almost leapt out of their chairs. Christine's hand flew up to her mouth in shock, and Janelle's eyes were closed, tears pricking but not falling. She had always suspected they had been manipulated, but to see it in black and white was to break something deeper. The judge rapped the gavel. Order. Order in the court. After the commotion died down, she addressed Kody. Mr. Brown, do you have anything to say to this evidence? Kody swallowed hard, his voice shaking. Your Honor. I didn't want to keep secrets. I was trying to hold things together until everything leveled out. The show was imploding, finances were strained, and I thought. You thought you could transfer millions without informing your family, the prosecutor cut in. I thought I could salvage it before it fell apart. Kody yelled, his voice breaking. His attorney attempted to soothe him, but the harm was done. The judge glared at him over her glasses. Mr. Brown, yelling won't alter the facts. You owed a fiduciary duty to all of that family. You didn't report millions in mutual assets. That's not mending. That's lying. The silence that followed was stifling. Robyn wept softly in front of her lawyer, murmuring, I didn't know, I didn't know. But Christine did not falter, her voice shaking yet firm. You knew enough. You let him do it. You lived off it. You watched us all starve while you built a castle on lies. Robyn shook her head, unable to utter a word. The air was charged with tension. Everyone knew something irrevocable had been done. The prosecutor turned to the judge. Your Honor, we ask that the court file a motion for a complete financial audit of K&R Holdings and all accounts held by Kody and Robyn Brown, U.S. and foreign. The judge nodded. Motion granted. Kody's hands shook as he leaned back in his chair. His kingdom, his persona, his precisely constructed dominance, was disintegrating before the eyes of the world. The flash of the camera outside the courtroom made the courthouse windows white bursts of light. But inside, finally, one thing was clear. The truth that had been hidden behind contracts, camera crews, and confessionals was now on record. And it was only the beginning. The courtroom was charged with intensity, reporters softly whispering and flying fingers across keyboards as the judge ordered a temporary recess. Kody sat still, staring down at the table. His breathing was ragged, his fingers shaking. Robyn sat next to him, her eyes red, holding a tissue that had already soaked. Christine and Janelle, across the room, conferred softly with one another. They were tired but determined.